Hey everyone, Schematist here, back with one more tutorial on how to build an RPG cave theme song. And I've gotten a couple of requests, and I think I'm going to get to all of them. Some people wanted to know what plugins I used, and some people wanted to know how I set up my step sequencer. I'm going to get to all those questions, but I wanted to get to this one first because I was actually just asked to write a temple theme, or cave theme, so I want to run through the project that I'm currently working on. So before I lose the attention, let's just get right into it. So we're going to start off with the guitar, which is going to be the anchor melody for the song. I promise. It looks complicated, but it's really, really straightforward. The purpose of this guitar pattern is simply to condition. I'm going to play it now and let you hear what I have and then explain it. But before you actually get into this composition of the actual building of the song, you're going to want to go up here to your tempo. I think FL Studio starts you off at about 110, 120 when you first open a project. You want to bring it down to about 90, 80, or the 70 range. For this project, I kept it at 71 because I felt that was appropriate. But, if you're in a cave or a dungeon, you wouldn't really want something that's super fast-paced. It's got to be somewhere in the mellow, calm, soothing range. And I think mine is in that kind of range. It's a little slower than normal, but, you can experiment and see what works for you. But here's my pattern here. And that's it. And this pattern was the same. I just took it and just plopped it right across like so until I finished the first half of the song. Now, the conditioning is very important. What that does is it tells your listener what's coming next, and they like to know what's coming next. And that way, you can throw them off a little bit with your layering techniques in this bottom half here. You can actually send them in a sort of a different direction. As long as it's not too far out of the realm and the atmosphere you're painting, it's perfectly okay. But you want them to know what's coming next. It doesn't have to be super complicated or jazzy or, you know what? That's a myth. People like to feel like they're in control of the song. So have something that has a simple melody that they can easily hum to, and that's what that anchor melody is for. Another thing, since you're composing for a cave or a temple, you're not going to want to play it safe. Absolutely not. Do not play it safe. What do I mean by that is, if you're making a song and you use only the white keys, all of the white keys are in the same key, the key of C, so they're all going to be very harmonic and melodic. That's too safe. And the same thing applies to the black keys. All of the black keys are safe. So to prevent that, you're going to want to combine the two. And I think, if you either combine from black to white or white to black, you're still going to get a really edgy sound. So experiment, play with it, and see what you can come up with. I think that's where music theory really comes into play. And I can't explain it much because I go by sound, sadly. I wish I could read music, but it's really interesting to see the pull and the edginess and grittiness you can combine to get this kind of a cave feeling. And that's a beautiful thing. So play with that. For my next pattern was the Celtic pattern here. It's the same thing as the guitar, actually. I just panned it a little bit to the left. These are the exact same notes. So it's not clashing with the guitar, but it gives it a little bit more body, a little bit more, I'll say, depth. And here it is here. Now you have the two anchor melodies playing in the song. Your listeners are already conditioned. They know what the whole song should sound like. Now you want the main thing. I cannot stress this part enough. Not the strings per se. You can use anything. You could use a pad, you can use strings. I decided to use strings, but you want the progression. The progression is really where the song is. It sends the song in whatever direction you so choose. For this, we're keeping that spooky feeling, this kind of mysterious, ominous, dark place. You don't know what's in it. It's grimy. It's disgusting. How do I do that with strings? This is the pattern that I came up with. It took a long time to create because I was trying to get it just right. It wasn't too complicated. It takes a lot of trial and error, to be honest. But here's what it sounds like. That was the most important part of the whole first section of the song, I promise, because now that you have your anchored melody going, once that comes in, the song is basically finished. Because at that point, you can add your melody, which is the main melody that you're gonna want to hum and have your listener remember, and then you're gonna add a little bit of a bass line if you choose. But I didn't even keep it that complicated. Just a couple of notes just to hold the song. The main thing was done up here. These three things up here, your anchored melodies, and your progression, that's it. Like, if you don't have a melody, that's okay, because the song can stand without it. It's just actually extra. I would recommend you do put in a melody, but you didn't need it. That's the main thing to say. So I'm going to actually play the first half of the song here and let you know what it sounds like all together, and then jump into part 2, which is going to be a lot easier because most of the work was already done in part 1. Part 2 is just going to be slight variations of what you did in part 1 to give it a little bit more, just a change, and change is good. You don't want it to be too stale and too obvious. But here's part 1. So remember when I said that part 2 was going to be easier? I absolutely meant that, because part 1 already had all the groundwork already finished. So part 2, we're going to just take a little bit what we have from part 1 and just vary it up a little bit. So the main thing here, I went to the guitar pattern first because as that is our anchor melody, we have to switch it up for the second section but still keep the same goal in mind, and that is to condition. So I'm going to play the guitar pattern that I made for the second section here, so you can see how that happened. And that still keeps that same ominous feeling. That pattern does not change. And in fact, the guitar pattern 3 is basically the same thing, but I added a couple of little high notes at the end to tie back into the loop, which comes up after this section here, right over here. But we're getting too far ahead. The main thing now is how do we get this section to have more body, to be more full? And it was to take that same pattern I used for the guitar and copy it by using Control A and then Control C, and then once you hit Control V you can get the exact same notes. But I actually did that twice. I put the same guitar pattern for the Celtic strings, and I put that same pattern again for a piano. And what that did was it took that same melody that you previously heard and added so much depth to it, so now it has a lot, it's just more filling, and it creates, that melody becomes that much more powerful, that much more ominous, and that was the main part of this section. Again, you want to go to the progression next, because I think that's the critical part. I use the strings one more time, and let me play that pattern here. It's not too far from the previous string pattern, still keeping that mystery feeling, and it sounds about like this. has a little bit of a ethereal feeling to me. It sounds like almost not even that sad. Kind of reminds me of Metroid Prime or something. But anyway, so now you have all of that going. That section is basically finished. The hardest parts are automatically out of the way, and all you have now are the melody, which I have here, which is gloomy synth, and a little bit of supporting bells, which I have here as a dark synth, which are like dark bells, and the percussion. In fact, I really wanted to get into percussion because I feel percussion is very critical, but I think I might have to do a tutorial on that altogether. You know, you just want to make sure that your hi-hats are not overpowering your snares and stuff like that. But that, I can probably go into that a little bit later. Basically, with the percussion, I just use really, really subtle rattles and clicks and taps to kind of make this subtle movement, kind of gave it this swampish feeling, to add to that layer of just dirtiness, this filth, this grime that you don't know what's ahead. You know you don't want to see it, but you have to keep progressing through this cave anyway, and that's the fun part. How do you make it happen with sound? That's why I love doing this so much. So actually, I can actually highlight this whole section again and play the second part because this is already finished. Because the only thing that was left was the melody. And the melody, like I said, is the least of your worries. You have all day to make the melody. Once you have the progression, which is the strings, and your anchored melody, which I have here with the guitar, the Celtic strings, and the piano, your job is already finished. So let's play part 2 and see what that sounds like. And that's it. So again guys, I'm not a professional. I just really like doing this, so take my advice with a grain of salt, and if you see something that you would like to change, go ahead, by all means do it. That's the way to learn. That's the way to make a lot of progress, and this program is very user friendly, I think, but it's also incredibly deep, so you're gonna find something that I haven't seen yet. That's just how it works. But thank you for stopping by, and Schematic signing out. Take care.